Good evening. Thank you all for being here. We're delighted to be here in Colerain Township. As some of you know, once a month we take the meeting on the road. We do it in the evening, and we've been doing it at all different parts of the county to make sure that we're being as accessible as possible and to introduce ourselves to the community and get to hear what's going on in the community. And so tonight we're going to be highlighting what's happening in Colerain Township. So we're very excited to be here, and thank you all for coming out to participate. We start our meetings with introductions, and I will say this is the regular meeting of the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners, May 16, 2019. Here in Colerain Township at the Administration Building. To my right is Jackie Paniotto. She is the clerk to the Board of County Commissioners. To my immediate left is Stephanie Summerow-Dumas. She is the Vice President of the Commission. Jeff Aludo is next to her, County Administrator, and our legal counsel, Michael Friedman, is next to him. We start our meetings with a silent prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand if you can. Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I'm going to make a motion that we approve of the minutes of the previous session.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer-Dumas?
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, I'm also going to make a motion to excuse Commissioner Portune from the meeting.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes?
Commissioner Summer-Dumas?
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. All right. I know that Chuck Mingo is in the audience with his wife and his kids, and so we are going to take this first. This is a presentation that we're doing, a proclamation in recognition of Crossroads, and I'm going to read a little bit of this proclamation because I think it's really so impressive and so important what you're doing, and so I want to expand on this just a little bit. So this is a proclamation in recognition of Crossroads Go Local Weekend of Action. Whereas organized and run by Crossroads Community Church, Go Local is entering its 14th year of providing wide-scale community service efforts. And whereas in place of holding regular weekend services, Crossroads is encouraging its members to give back to the community and to serve others. And whereas since its inception, Crossroads Go Local is to mobilize its members toward numerous community service projects focused on providing genuine and lasting change in the communities that we call home. And whereas Crossroads encourages Go Local to be more than just an annual event for members of the church, but also the first step in building a culture of community service and altruistic duty among those who participate and are impacted by Go Local's many projects. And whereas Crossroads invests nearly $1 million in equipping and mobilizing 12,000 people as they work to better communities and make a difference through 850 different projects across the region, including 400 in Hamilton County. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County recognizes the importance of volunteerism and extends our appreciation to Crossroads Community Church and the participants of the 14th Annual Go Local Weekend of Action, and be it further proclaimed that the Board of County Commissioners of Hamilton County does hereby recognize the 16th day of May 2019 as Go Local Day in all of Hamilton County. Mm-hmm. Come on up, Chuck.
Congratulations.
So the proclamation signed by all three county commissioners, and Chuck, if you wouldn't mind, we'll take a photo, but then we'd like to hear from you and how this works. All right, great. Yes. If you wouldn't mind going to the podium so we can. Yep. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and I will be brief. I'll just say simply that, we see in the Bible this call to go, this call to not just be a place where life happens within the walls of a church, but literally to take the church outside of the walls. The great commandment that Jesus tells us is to love our neighbors as ourselves, and we believe Go Local is an expression of that. So I'm honored to be here really representing the thousands of people who who are part of Crossroads' many locations across the Cincinnati area and even around the region and beyond, who just say we want to roll up our sleeves and, as we call it, be tangible love to great organizations in our city doing great work. So very honored to be considered for this commendation, and I receive it on behalf of the many, many Crossroaders who together make up Go Local.
We're thrilled to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there comments?
Madam President, I can remember when your group came out to the Village of Lincoln Heights when I was the village manager, and we asked for a salt bin, which seems, not that, but it was extremely expensive. But you guys figured out how to get this salt bin. We had been putting the salt all in the parking lot and losing it in the drains, and so anyway. But the attitude that you guys had, the loving atmosphere, and just wanting to do more, and just continuing to give us strength, just really strengthened me as a manager to try to get more people in our community involved. And there were only a few from our community there, but you guys were just awesome, and I'll never forget it. So I thank you so much and your group.
Yeah, great. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for that opportunity.
Congratulations, and good luck this weekend. All right. Also, we wanted to hear from Colerain Township and the folks in Colerain Township. And I know Jeff Mills, the administrator, is going to come up and give us a brief overview. But before you do, I want to recognize the township trustees. And I know Rajagopal is here somewhere in the room. I know it. There he is. Thank you. Raj, am I in your seat? It's nice. I especially like the gavel. I'm big on gavels. Dan Unger, the vice president is the vice president of the trustees, and Greg Insko is also one of the trustees. I just do want to thank all three for being nice enough to host us this evening and having us out. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Jeff.
I'm not used to standing here. Well, Commissioner Driehaus, Commissioner Summer-Dumas, welcome. On behalf of Trustee Rajagopal, Trustee Unger, Trustee Insko, welcome to Colerain Township, Ohio's second largest township, and welcome everybody here who doesn't often get a chance to come out to Colerain. I hope that on your way home you enjoy one of our awesome restaurants, or at the very least treat yourself to an ice cream cone. We are at a time now when I think the relationship between Colerain Township and the county is just fantastic. And I just wanted to thank you and all of your staff for the great partnership that we've been able to forge over the past few years. A couple of projects that jump quickly to mind. We've partnered very recently with Joy Pearson and the Community Development Department to build 70 affordable senior housing units in a neighborhood that has just absolutely was at the time just decimated by blight and disinvestment. And that is the West Union Square. That's the West Union Square Center down in Groesbeck. It was just incredible, and we used home dollars to get that thing across the finish line. It was a fantastic project. We partner often with the Regional Planning Commission. Most recently, we received a mini grant for planning efforts at Northgate Mall and the revitalization that's needed in that location. We're looking into adding retail to the mix of uses to enliven that space. We're very excited about that. We would not be able to have done that study without that mini grant. We continue to use community development block grant dollars to support neighborhood revitalization, most recently in a neighborhood called Northbrook, which is full of vim and vigor and folks that are looking every day to make their community better. We use CDBG money to fund a study, and we will be following that study up with implementation dollars soon. We always have a great relationship with the Hamilton County Engineer's Office. He'll probably talk about more of the projects that are going on in Colerain, but I did want to highlight his work in East Miami River Road, which is a road that's in desperate need of work, and we've been able to partner to get that improved. Public health, we have lots of great relationships there with the We Thrive initiative and the spotlight that they've put on the QRT, the Quick Response Team, which was innovated here and has become a national model for response to the opiate crisis. And finally, the Communication Center, which I believe is one of the great examples of the value that shared services can provide. And we really appreciate that you all were very sensitive to the impact on local budgets that the detail rate has. It is very impactful, but I think that overall the Communication Center is a shining star when it comes to regional shared services. Mm-hmm. So with that, thank you, and thank your staff, and thank all of you for coming to Colerain. Welcome, and have a great meeting.
And before you leave the podium, I do want to note that we talk a lot about the countywide QRT, the Quick Response Team. But it did start here in Colerain only because the folks in Colerain, law enforcement and treatment specialists, were willing to step up and say, we need to do something to connect people to treatment. And we need to get them where they live, literally on their door. And you guys were the innovators and way ahead of the curve on that. And it has become not a model only in Ohio, but throughout the country. And so kudos to you and for all those in Colerain Township that were part of that effort. And the other thing you mentioned, a fiscal item, and so I'm going to just remind everybody from Colerain Township that the water rates in Colerain Township will remain flat for the next 50 years. We struck an agreement with the city last week, and so we were very pleased to be able to make that work because that was not where we started, but we did end in a very good place. So flat for 50 years, it provides a lot of stability for Colerain Township and all the other townships, but also for the city of Cincinnati when they look to revenue sources, and so it's a very consistent revenue stream for them. So thank you so much for being here. Are there any comments
No,
or
Madam
questions?
President, just thank you for the invitation. I'll be back.
Great, thanks,
Okay.
Jeff. And then Ted Hubbard, the engineer, is here. And Ted, we've asked you to come out just to elaborate a little bit on some of the road projects that are happening in Colerain Township, or that impact Colerain Township.
Good evening, Commissioners. First of all, I'd like to say that Colerain Township and Hamilton County had a very, very, very long and successful partnership. When you drive Colerain Avenue, you see those medians that some people curse at. I want to tell you that was done as a collaborative effort with the business community, with the residents, the township, the state, and the county. What we did, and that partnership is going on in the Colerain corridor. That was the first access management project of its kind that was constructed in the state of Ohio. One of the things we promised our state legislators, we promised them that we would improve Pippin Road also. And so it's taken us a while. That's been an expensive project, over $12 million for the two sections. But I'm pleased to report we are very close to being completed. The southern portion is almost done. And I got to tell you, this type of collaboration is extremely important. I grew up in Springfield. I live in Springfield Township. I grew up there. And we were seeing in Colerain Township, as we have seen in Springfield Township, businesses leaving. And I'll tell you, the folks got together here, and I'll tell you, the new development that has occurred out by 275 wouldn't be there, I don't believe, if it weren't for the partnership. Redevelopment and reinvestment in Colerain Township is happening. We're hoping the same thing will happen in Springfield with Winton Road improvements. But the cooperation pays off. It's paid off here, and we want to see that continue. Sometimes it's a little painful. I'm not going to say it's always easy, but nothing worthwhile is. So, but I think we've made great strides. Some of the big projects that are happening in the area, again, I mentioned Pippin Road. We will be rebuilding Atherton Road Bridge in Colerain Township as well, and we're working on Cheviot Road. That's on the Colerain Green Township line from North Bend Road up to Jessup. We will be adding a lane, which is going to make that corridor operate more efficiently. Jeff was talking about some of the resurfacing we've done. Yes, East Miami River Road is in bad shape. We were able to get funding to improve it from the Butler County line down past Old Colerain Avenue. We were also able to get a section of Old Colerain Avenue resurfaced last year. As we look to the future, there is more that is on the horizon. First of all, East Miami River Road, we're going to be doing engineering to improve the intersection at Harrison and East Miami River Road, and then we're going to do another section of resurfacing on East Miami River Road. Harrison Road is also going to be resurfaced, and that's rough. I know the folks in Green Township and the folks in both Green and Colerain use that as well as many others of us. But that is going to be resurfaced from Old Rybolt to Veterans Park, and so we'll be able to advance that project. Civic Center, actually, we propose to have that now. You know, the folks who use Civic Center, I'm sure the sheriff and others who use it, you know, it is very rough. We're actually able to get that moved up. That's going to be on our resurfacing program for this year. It was scheduled for 2020, but we're going to move that project up. Hopefully we're going to be able to resurface River Road next year as well. In our resurfacing program that's scheduled for this year, another project that Colerain Township will be very, very much interested in is resurfacing of Springdale Road from Pippin all the way to Green Hills. We've got that funded. That's in the program. That's going to happen. And West Kemper Road, we're going to do that in sections, but we're going to go from Lick Road. We're going to do the western section first, and then we'll move forward. So that's another project. So there's a lot going on in Colerain Township. The partnership is great. I've worked with Raj. It's been decades now, Raj. I mean, it's been decades, but they're great partners, and nothing happens without partnership and hard work, and Colerain Township has proven to be a great partner.
Thank you, Ted. Any questions?
I'd be
No, I
glad.
have no question.
All right, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
giving us the update. The next portion of the meeting is public comments. I have a number of speakers' cards, but I think they're all related to the public hearing. That's going to be about the CDBG funds, except for one. And I think Jeff Capel, am I correct that your item is not on the agenda? Correct. All right, so come on up. We will give you the pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes. Welcome.
Yes, good evening, and thanks again, like I said last month, for having these night meetings. And I again invite you to come out to Blue Ash whenever you're
Appreciate the invitation. We'll be out.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, what I wanted to talk about is a couple weeks ago, I was reading in the paper that the Port Authority was putting out this trial balloon of wanting to implement a countywide property tax on all of us to help fund their operations. I was hoping that was a practical joke, but I'm afraid it's not. Now, we know that the Port Authority has been involved in some items that they simply should not be involved with. The most high-profile one is they decided to take ownership of, they got into some deal with FC Cincinnati to take ownership of the stadium and then lease it back to them. Now, why go through all those shenanigans? Because since Port Authority is government, that wipes out the taxes that FC Cincinnati should be paying. So the sales taxes that we should be getting on that stadium, you're not getting those. The property taxes to your general fund, you're not getting those. And I know we've got plenty of people in here who work with or are reliant on county-wide property taxes. They're not getting their share because of this corrupt move that the Port Authority is making. And it's quite an insult for them to tell the rest of us who pay our taxes that we should pay more taxes so that they can continue running tax avoidance schemes for their billionaire friends. That is simply not why the Port Authority was created. The Port Authority was created to promote economic development. And for one thing, stadiums have been proven to not be economic development. But if they are going to continue, they need to be brought back into focus. They need to focus on genuine economic activities, and they should not be running tax shelters for their billionaire friends. So I certainly hope that you guys will do what you can to put an end to any idea of a property tax increase on us for them and get them back to their core mission. Thank you again for having this evening meeting.
Yeah, great. Thank you for your comments. I've been notified that Kerry Davis is also here on an item that is not on the agenda. I hope that is that correct? Very good, yeah. The pleasure of the floor for 2 minutes.
Real quick, I just want to stress that we have the biggest investment in this community isn't the money, it's the people. We've seen an extraordinary response from our community to come out, step up, and help out their own location. So in Greater Northbrook, being with Christmas in September, our Paint Colerain, or Paint the Town, and our community cleanups are just a few examples of what the Greater Northbrook Community Group has been doing. So keep an eye on them and help them when they come to you. The biggest issue of all is Rumpke. Colerain Township's hands are tied. They signed a consent decree in 2015 and 2000. And so legally they cannot represent us and fight for us. The stench from Rumpke has now gone all the way to Green Township and White Oak. You know, I live in Groesbeck by St. Anne's. The smell of the garbage is horrific. They are increasing, they have asked under their permit to increase the amount of garbage brought in 30%. They want to increase the height to over 1,200 feet high. And we are powerless in the township to fight them because of these consent decrees. And we really, really need the county to step up. In Missouri, the Attorney General's office stepped up and sued on behalf of the odor, just the stench, and won $11.6 million against a landfill out there that was violating their state law that we also have. So I'm asking for you to please do some work on this issue now before it gets approved and stop Rumpke from violating the odor nuisance laws in Ohio. Also, I wanted to say, when Officer Dale Woods died up here on Colerain, a big contributing factor to that was the lack of lighting on Colerain Avenue. And I do understand the shared responsibility between the township and the county, but I would like you guys to please look at this. We've lost 3 lives in approximately that same location, and we need your help. I mean, we've lost an officer now, you know, and we need some lights there. And the last thing real quick is sidewalks to schools, folks. We're having the same problem out here that they had in the city. And I know you give us some funding for this through general distributions and stuff, but we're in dire need. We have children walking to school in the street, Pippin Road, and that would be something to focus on since they're going to work on it anyway. Can you please try to find the funds to allocate a sidewalk going from, you know, Struble down Pippin Road to Northwest High School? We have kids walking in the dark in the street, and we have the same problem at Colerain. But I would like you guys to look into providing us extra funding for these purposes.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for being here.
Hey, Stephanie, I'm so glad to see you.
Okay.
All right. So we will move on to comments and motions of commissioners. Vice President Summer Loomis.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no by-leaves, but just a couple comments. I'd like to thank publicly Ralph Lynn, the director of the county facilities. He presented us with a comprehensive report today I read over as it relates to the savings in that department and how even though we've increased our energy level, we've used more water, we've used more electricity, but he has found a way through with his staff to give savings to the county. So I publicly want to thank him. I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. Is it Lynn or?
Lenny.
Lenny, okay.
Lenny.
So I want to do that right. Okay. And in addition, before I left today, I received a memo from Lisa Anderson as it relates to our first quarter transient occupancy tax and the fact that collections have increased just this year from 2018, 15.6%, which is equal to about $513,000 from the same period in 2018. I publicly want to thank my Chief of Staff, Dr. Paul Sohi, was like a thorn in a lot of people's sides. I'm not saying he's responsible for all the increase, but he did a lot of research, asked a lot of questions, a lot of pushing to see how we could gain more transient occupancy taxes, and it looks like we're on our way to even more of an increase. So I want to stand up so they can see who you are. I wanted to thank him publicly. Okay, so, because as a team, our whole goal is to look at this budget and how we can generate more revenue and save and just be more thoughtful in our spending. So that just leads us to where we're going. And also, I just wanted to say a little bit. On Saturday, I went to an event, an awesome event. It was Angels Guarding Youth, and it's a group who deals with foster parents and foster children, and it was just a great activity. I was able to speak for a while there, and I thank them so much for inviting me as we look at JFS and the funding that's going forth for foster families. There's a new initiative that people will be hearing more about, a stipend for the adults that have their relatives in their home. JFS and the county is in agreement with a stipend for those adults. We know it won't remedy the situation. It's an expensive task, but at least it'll start helping them so they won't go in the hole trying to help their own relatives. I also met with Mayor Cramley this week, and it was a very productive meeting as we look at the city and county and also trying to work closely together on joint partnerships and projects that we're dealing with right now and also in the future. So I had a great meeting with him. Okay, and then today I met with a gentleman who is working on what we call a forward task force, and that task force is to hopefully look at the county and how we're spending our money, how we can better utilize our money, the gaps that we're missing, creative financing, and so you'll be hearing more about that forward task force and whether or not the county is going to look in that. I certainly suggested to him if we can look at maybe a not as expensive task force, but to do that same task and let people know that we're using our money effectively and that we, in the long run, are trying to do the best we can with what we have in this pot. So just want to let you know that we're diligently looking at how we can look at our revenues and do things in a better way. So that will end my report, Madam President.
Thank you. I just have one item. I had the pleasure of representing the commission at the Dent opening of the Kroger Marketplace. It's fantastic. It's got just a lot in it. And there was a huge crowd there with the band from Oak Hills was there. UC cheerleaders were there. The trustees were there. It was really a fantastic celebration, and it's a beautiful, beautiful store. So if y'all haven't been to the marketplace in Dent, I would encourage you to go down and take a look. With that, Jeff, I'm going to turn it over to you for your by leave.
Thank you, Madam President. Just one by leave. I believe we had two in your packets initially, and MSD, we are down to one, correct, for this evening? So just one by leave. This is in your packet. This is the Mount Washington Source Control Implementation Project. Ryan Welsh and Jack Rennekamp are here from MSD to speak to the project or answer any questions, but the board did receive a fairly thorough presentation on this in Tuesday's staff meeting, along with several speakers on the item. The administration does recommend approval of this item, which is $530,700 for planning activities associated with Mount Washington Source Control implementation. The only thing that I would ask or qualify with as commissioners, as we discussed in staff meeting on Tuesday, is that at an appropriate point in time during this planning activities, whether that's 30% design or what have you, I might ask that the board ask MSD to return to follow up on some of the questions that were asked, where we determined that some additional looks might be needed on things like downstream impacts, what sort of level of control we are seeing, whether it's 25, 100-year storm, what would happen and what we're seeing if reoccurrences do occur, just so as we start to get this project planned, we can put some finality to some of those questions that were asked by the county team and by some of the residents. That would be the only qualification I would put on this, but the administration does recommend proceeding with the design of the project.
Thank you. And yeah, and I do want to just follow up on that a little bit. I know we had a lot of conversation at our last meeting about some of the design elements and trying to make sure that we're not creating issues downstream for other neighborhoods. But this is a bit of a pilot program out in Mount Washington, and I think it's important that we move forward as quickly as we can, given the time lag that we've already endured. And so I too am in favor of moving this forward. If there are questions or comments, we will entertain those. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we need a full presentation since we had that on Tuesday. So I'm just going to say that up front, unless you would like to have a presentation.
Okay. No, I don't need a presentation. You guys were very thorough. I just had a couple comments. First of all, I had indicated that I had a concern about possibly a 50-year plan versus the 25, because of the big gap between 25-year proposal and then when you went to a 100-year plan. So I was just really surprised that I didn't get anything before this Thursday meeting, because normally I would defer and not vote on it because I needed to see that. So I guess I'm saying that because if another project comes up and I mentioned some items that are not giving me clarity, if you could please follow through and give, I don't know if it would take a whole nother survey if you have it on record or what, but I was just really surprised that I didn't get it.
Yeah, first let me confirm Jeff's question. We can, at the 30% design, can come back to the board and present a design memo, technical memo
Thank you.
at that point. But to the 25-year versus 100-year, I didn't realize that you were asking us to bring anything, but I can maybe explain more about what that is.
Yeah.
This was really designed for a 25-year storm. It just so happened that design, what the selected alternative, also meets a 100-year storm. So there was never any intention to go to a 50-year level or 100-year level. That's just the result of what this design effort, that's the result of it. Normally our sewers are designed for a 10-year storm, so with this project, we're exceeding what would be expected.
Right. And it was made clear that normally the standard is 10. I understood that. But I remember saying, I would like to see what it looks like. So that kind of means bring something else, okay? So I'm comfortable with passing this, only because I know that people are suffering right now. When the rains come, there's more backup, so I don't want to delay it anymore. We deferred it to today. And also, in addition, just had a question. Do you ever do a survey on the environmental impact of this project or any other project? Do you do environmental surveys?
All of our projects, when we get the permit from the Ohio EPA, they have to pass the anti-degradation review. So all of our projects, as they move forward, before it's constructed, that is ensured.
Okay, and who do you use?
We
The
submit
EPA does it,
application to
or
the
who
Ohio
does-
EPA.
I can hardly hear
The
you.
Ohio EPA actually permits all of
They
our
do it
construction.
themselves? Or do they
We
have
submit an
somebody?
application, and it's a very detailed application at the 90% design. And they won't give us a permit if it doesn't meet their specifications, what they require.
Okay. Right.
If I could, I think the Commissioner Ryan may have been asking, in terms of the anti-dag work that you have to do, is that done by a private firm? Is that done in-house, or how's that done?
Typically on a large project, we'll hire a consulting engineering firm to assist with the design. But it's still our responsibility to manage the project, and we always prepare that application for all the permits and ensure that we're in compliance.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, because specifically, what I've been looking at as a new commissioner are contracts and bids and who's selected and how do you go out and to recruit new vendors, small businesses, things like that, because it has appeared to me that maybe larger businesses are getting most of the business. So I know there's a process where you choose the best, of course, but I always look at can we throw the net out a little further? So I appreciate that.
All right, great, thank you. All right, upon the recommendation of the administration and MSD, I am going to move to approve of the Mount Washington Source Control Implementation Project, the by-leave item.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Thank you all for being here. All right, we're going to move into the public hearing. This is a public hearing related to the CDBG dollars that the county has to allocate to different organizations and communities in Hamilton County. Joy, I assume, Joy Pearson is here. She is the one that helps us work through this process. I do want to lay out that we have a committee that looks at the projects that apply for these dollars, and in front of us is a recommendation from the committee by way of the allocation of those dollars. The other caveat, I think there's some confusion about how these dollars can be spent, and I know you'll elaborate on that, but I do want to note that the city of Cincinnati also has CDBG dollars that they spend, and so ours are particularly targeted to the community outside the city of Cincinnati, because those communities will not benefit from the city CDBG dollars. So I've heard that question a couple times, and I just want to make sure that we're clear as to what the purpose of the allocations are. So with that, Joy, if you could help frame the issue, and then we will move into the public comments.
Thank you. I'm going to present the process and the overview, and Mike Donahue from the Community Development Advisory Committee is going to present the recommendations. So as you mentioned, this is part of our HUD funding. Our action plan is submitted once a year. We have to be ready to submit it in January, but we're not able to submit it until we find out our grant. So the commissioners reviewed the large majority of the action plan and the budget for 3 grants, including the Community Development Block Grant, which is $3.4 million this year, and the home funding, which is for affordable housing, at $1.3 million, and its Emergency Solutions Grant, which is used for homelessness prevention and rapid rehousing, and that's $280,000. Tonight, we are just speaking about $775,000 of the $3.3 million, and that's what the public hearing is about. We have not yet submitted our action plan. We just recently received our grant amount, and we'd like to submit that as soon as possible. It takes about 45 days for HUD to review it, and we'd like to start the projects and the programs July 1st. So as you mentioned, the block grant funds must be used outside of the city of Cincinnati. Hamilton County has about 800,000 people. 300,000 are in the city roughly, and 500,000 are out in the other 47, 48 local governments. The city of Cincinnati receives more than $11 million in this community development block grant. As you know, we just received 3.3. So we're trying to stretch our dollars as much as possible to the communities that participate in the program, which right now are 41 local governments. A maximum of 15% of our total grant can be used for social services or public services. So that's about $500,000. It's actually $499,000 this year. And then the balance of that can be used on the balance of the 775 we budgeted to be used on housing related, what I call hammer and nail housing repairs. So the recommendations are broken down by 475,000 for public services out of a maximum of 500, and 300,000 for the hammer and nail sort of thing. The process that we used, we had a call for applications, including 2 legal notices that were published in the paper, as well as outreach to over 48 organizations. We included, that's not including our local governments, that's the 41 local governments plus 48 organizations. We included all past applicants. We included the affordable housing advocates, as well as large nonprofits like Urban League, the NAACP, Community Action Agency, et cetera. We worked with Robert Bell and the Office of Economic Inclusion and all of the chambers of commerce that are in the region, and we sent the information out. We had a question and answer meeting that was optional. It was attended by 15 organizations, about 20 people. And then we had a Q&A, question and answer document that was online that was updated at least once a week, usually once a day, with any question from anybody, so that everybody had the benefit of the question of other applicants and the answers that were given. The staff reviewed applications to ensure that the services were eligible, and we had one application that was not eligible. The Mercy Health submitted an application for security guards at their hospital in Green Township, and that was not something that we could track any benefit to low to moderate income people. And then we passed on the other 19 applications to the Community Development Advisory Committee. The committee is appointed by you, and it consists of 11 members.
Can I interrupt, because I know some of them are in the audience?
Yes.
Could they be recognized?
Thank you. Yes.
I just want to thank you for your service. Will you stand if you were on the committee?
Jeff Mills.
And Jeff Mills, yeah.
Georgine Getty is here with Our Daily Bread, and Michael Donahue with
Thank you.
Village of Woodland. So we have 4 folks from participating jurisdictions, 4 from social service agencies, 1 developer, 1 funder, and 1 real estate professional. So we have a wide variety of expertise that comes. So the committee met before the RFP went out and made some suggestions to change that, which we did. And I will say this is our 2nd year of doing this process. So every year we believe we can continue to do it better, and we're open to tweaking things and making things better. So they recommended they approved the final RFP, and then met twice, once to review the applications overall, ask questions for staff to follow up of the applicants, and then the second time they met and scored and made recommendations. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mike Donahue.
Good evening.
Commissioners. I'm Mike Donahue from Woodlawn. Joy did a great job presenting the process in a very brief time, so I won't go back, but I want to present the CDAC recommendations and just make a couple of comments. When we began the process, we looked at a total ask of $2.9 million, and it was 375% more than there was available money. So we had to begin relatively quickly a winnowing down process. And the 11 of us met on a couple of occasions, like Joy said, and focused in large measure on who will have the best impact, where the greatest impact, where will we get the biggest bang for the buck, that type of thing. And so that's what we did over the course of those 2 meetings. As a result of that, we're making recommendations for the following. Our first recommendation is for the Free Store Food Bank. They're expanding access to fresh food program, $100,000. Our second one is St. Vincent de Paul, their charitable pharmacy, $100,000. Working in Neighborhoods, which is a financial capability program, $15,000. Legal aid, the CAA, the eviction prevention programs that they're doing, $150,000. Lydia's House for housing and supportive services, $50,000. And finally, legal aid again, their foreclosure prevention program to keep people with a roof over their heads. That's a total of $775,000, and that's what the recommendation was that we've made to you. Sure.
There was $300,000 that was recommended for housing repairs, and that we hold that funding. We want to explore some options for providing that service either with small businesses and contractors or through an overall nonprofit organization.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you. So with deference, I would like to get to the speakers, is that okay?
I'd like to ask a
Okay.
question
All right.
first. A couple questions. Joy, if you could, first of all, thank you for all you do, and I'm glad that people volunteered their time to be a part of this process. You had said earlier that the committee was selected by us. When was the selection made?
The appointments to the advisory committee were made in February, March? Actually, let me back up. The committee has been around for decades, and several years ago, we changed the makeup of the committee so that we had staggered terms. Some people served 1 year, some 2, some 3. Now, all new appointments are every 3 years. Most recently, there were 4 people appointed. I believe it was in March. We came before the commission, and 4 people were appointed most recently and the applications, the county clerk solicited applicants last fall, and then the appointments were made in March for 4 people. And this year, there'll be additional appointments, and then the following year. And every year, there will be an option for people to reapply if they'd like to continue to serve, or for new applicants to apply. But ultimately, the commissioners will make those appointments every year.
And what would be the name of the committee?
The Community Development Advisory Committee.
Okay. Okay, so I don't remember being a part of that, but we had to, it was a unanimous, I guess, that we voted from the applications that came in. Okay, just the process that you just laid out, you have that in writing. Could I get that in writing? That would be great.
Sure.
Yeah. The housing repair, of course, you mentioned earlier, with the $300,000 that's left over, I would strongly advocate that we look at small businesses if we can. I know that would mean that we'd have to put another RFP out or something to be able to do that. But if we can do that, if that's our option, and time-wise it won't interfere with our obligation with HUD, I would certainly advocate, because I know a small business would be happy to get $25,000. So I'd just like to recommend that. In addition, the committee composition, are they eligible for funding, people that are on the committee?
The committee is made up of participating jurisdictions, social service agencies, and other professionals. And inherently, the participating jurisdictions are eligible for funding, but their funding is not a competitive process. The budget is split 50-50, and 50% of the funding is given to the communities that participate, and we fund what they ask for. If there is a competitive process like this process, if there's an applicant, for example, with legal aid, there is a representative from legal aid on the committee, they abstain, they recuse themselves from this process. And then we have 2 small competition, or 1 small program, the mini grant program, and we ask that if somebody's going to apply, they don't serve on that subcommittee. Likewise with the Community and Economic Development Assistance Program, if they are going to apply for that funding, they do not sit on that subcommittee.
Thank you. But lastly, there are 11 people on the committee?
Yes.
Okay. Did any of those people on the committee, whether or not they abstained or not, did they receive any of the funding for their agency?
Well, legal aid did receive funding, and
Anyone
then
else?
legal aid and the Community Action Agency did receive funding for a new eviction prevention program.
Restore.
No, there's nobody else on the committee from any of the social service agencies that were recommended for funding. The only representative was from legal aid, and he recused himself.
Okay. And community action, you were saying?
That was a joint application, but there's nobody from community action serving on the advisory committee.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all right, let's get to our public speakers, or rather our community speakers. I will apologize in advance if I mess up your name. Sandra Saylor is first. Oh, very good. And just as an overview, we generally allow people 2 minutes to comment to the item at hand. Thank you.
My grandson timed me twice today. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
And thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Sandra Saylor. I'm a lifelong resident of Hamilton County. I'm college educated. I have a 48-year work history. I've always been independent, and I've always been proud to state that I've stood on my own 2 feet and taken care of myself. In 2011, that all changed. In November, I lost my husband of 42 years to pancreatic cancer in 91 days. In December, I almost died, and the doctor said I could not return to work. I was crushed. Social Security approved my disability in 6 weeks, but there is no medical coverage for 24 months once you're approved for disability. Between paying for COBRA and monthly medical bills, my savings were depleted in 5 years. A year ago, I reached the donut gap in Medicare halfway through the year, and my inhalers went from $147 a month to over $600. Breathing treatments, EpiPen, and medication added another $500. I swallowed my pride, and I went to St. Vincent de Paul Pharmacy, and I asked for help. Unexpectedly, I was treated so kindly and with so much respect that within a matter of minutes, Mike made me feel like I was talking to a long-time friend. I've witnessed this same graciousness and treatment to each client that comes into that pharmacy, as we have to go there once a month to get our refills. We are all one major medical illness away from being financially devastated. Thank you for your time, and any consideration that you could give to St. Vincent de Paul Charitable Pharmacy would be greatly appreciated by me and all of their clients.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lydia Bailey. Lydia Bailey. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Lydia Bailey, and I'm the clinical pharmacist for St. Vincent de Paul. The scope of my position is to ensure every single patient receives the optimal clinical care that we can provide. When you picture your typical pharmacy, you probably don't imagine clinical appointments before receiving your medication, but we're not your typical pharmacy. Every patient gets a one-on-one appointment every 6 months where we sit down and have a full health screening, review every disease state, every medication they're on, and provide counseling. Each month during prescription pickup, a pharmacist talks with a patient to make sure they answer any questions they have. No other pharmacy offers this level of care. We're diligent with these clinical services because we want to make sure we're being good stewards of the free medicine we're providing. It's through these consistent interventions that we create powerful health outcomes. But it doesn't stop with our patients. After graduating with my doctorate degree, I became connected with St. Vincent de Paul through their residency program. This program is a year-long opportunity that provides training in underserved care. One of the most impactful parts of my job now is training the new residents, students, and volunteers. Because I know we're creating a network of providers who value patients for who they are, not what they can offer. Since I have begun only 3 years ago, we have graduated another 3 residents, 182 students, and 775 volunteers. Imagine the imprint we could have on the Cincinnati community of healthcare providers in the next 3 years if we received the funding. That's where Hamilton County comes in. With your continued support, we can accept new patients and keep medications in stock, and we can keep building our clinical program and our teaching program. So I urge you to consider funding for St. Vincent de Paul. We appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Mike Estill. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Mike Estill. I am the founder and the director of the St. Vincent de Paul Charitable Pharmacy. I've had 44 years in underserved care as a pharmacist. This SVDP Charitable Pharmacy is the last resort safety net for medication assistance in Hamilton County. Over 460,000 prescriptions worth $55 million have been filled since 2006. Qualifying patients receive their prescriptions at no cost and get positive health outcomes through the clinical services that we provide. We help underserved patients find a medical provider, decrease their risk of hospitalizations and ER visits, improve their adherence to their medication, and improve their diabetes control. Almost 60% of our patients are diabetic. The primary reason for the charitable pharmacy's success is because we get donated medicine that covers 80% of the prescriptions that we fill. You all know how expensive medicine is, and we just have a bunch of diverse donated sources for our medicine. The charitable pharmacy filled over 61,000 prescriptions last year, which was a 17% increase. It will be relocated into a new facility in November. The new, more spacious Bank Street Pharmacy will have expanded open hours and enable more efficient operation and more space for medication donations. We can't continue to grow the help provided to our neighbors without the continued assistance of our community partners such as Hamilton County. Thanks for funding us for the block grant last year, and I hope you will consider funding us again this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Richard McVeigh.
Good evening, Commissioner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Rich McVeigh here. I live in Colerain Township, and tonight I'm addressing you as a member of the board of Maslow's Army. All of Maslow's Army are praying for the quick recovery of Commissioner Portune. He is a dear friend. Maslow's Army has become the recognized face of homelessness in Hamilton County. I urge the commissioners to seriously consider their modest request for funds to continue this especially important work. The work Maslow's Army has done to provide needed shelter during cold weather is well publicized, as well as the outreach efforts on Friday at the Cincinnati Central Library and at the Hamilton County Justice Center on Sunday afternoon. Recently, I was able to spend a few days with Sam Landis, the founder, during the week, and I witnessed firsthand the peer mentoring skills he uses in reaching out to those in need. Sam and Susan, because of their backgrounds, are quickly able to connect with those who are in need and who are hesitant for any number of reasons to reach out to take advantage of many of the available services in Hamilton County. They are a go-between. This grant will provide Maslow's Army with the additional funds to reach out to those with needs and connect them to available resources. Thank you for thoughtfully considering our request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Kurt Reiber. Good evening.
Good evening. The state of senior hunger in Hamilton County. A study was released this Tuesday that showed that Hamilton County was one of the top 10 worst counties out of the 88 counties in Ohio dealing with food insecurity for adults aged 50 to 59. The work the Free Store Food Bank does is to try and provide services to those families that are in need, that are food insecure. We have 450 pantries throughout the 20 county service area of the Free Store Food Bank that provide, this year will be 33.5 million meals to those families. The funds that the Hamilton County CDBG funding provides is allows us to provide fresh produce to families in over 30 of our pantries that are outside of the city of Cincinnati. It makes a huge impact as far as dealing with some of the health initiatives and health problems that many of those families suffer from. When you think about it, this study also showed that Kentucky ranked first in adult hunger, and Ohio ranked 9th. That's not a top 10 list that we want to be on. And Hamilton County has been very supportive of the work that we do and the outreach that we have. We can't do it without collaborative partners such as Hamilton County and the other 450 pantries that we support throughout the 20 county service area. We also want to congratulate Joy and her team and the committee on the very transparent and thoughtful process that they underwent in order to come up with this recommendation. We think that it was very thorough and thoughtful, and is something that is really a linchpin to some of the work that we do throughout the county. So thank you for that. Thank you for your consideration. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Shad Rika Pastor.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm speaking on behalf of St. Vincent de Paul. My grandmother uses St. Vincent de Paul Charitable Pharmacy. She has high blood pressure, diabetes, kidney failure, heart disease. We're so grateful for this program. Before being recommended to St. Vincent, I was actually working overtime hours to help her pay for her medication. I prayed to God for something to give. Literally, 2 days later, a nurse called and recommended St. Vincent de Paul Pharmacy for us. And we got an appointment within that week. The same day, they gave her all her medications at no cost. They've always been really nice. I couldn't believe it, honestly. This program is answering prayers for real people in need. So I'm really grateful for them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. The next speaker is Dr. Botti. Good evening.
Good evening, Commissioners.
Good evening.
Forgot my reading glasses, I apologize. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of St. Vincent de Paul. My name is Omri Botti, and I'm an internal medicine physician here in Cincinnati. I've been working with the charitable pharmacy at St. Vincent for over 5 years now, and I've been lucky enough to serve as board president for the past year and a half. You've heard these countless amazing stories and all these lives that we're able to touch over the years. But at the same time, I know you all have to deal in dollars and cents, so I'd like to give you some hard numbers, basically the ROI for Hamilton County. I'll start with the referral sources. We get about 82% of our referrals from the hospital health systems. That includes Tri-Health at 33%, Mercy Health 21%, Christ Hospital 17%, and UC Health at 11%. The remaining 18% come from the underserved clinics or behavioral health agencies and just a kind of smattering of other community and private health clinics. Then we have the total value that we provide for the local healthcare systems, specifically from 2017 to 2018. We worked on 3 very specific categories for each health system. We calculated, number 1, the estimated cost avoidance, the service worth, and the number and value of prescriptions we've provided. The total value for Tri-Health was at $8.3 million. Christ Hospital at $4.7, Mercy Health also at $4.7 million, and UC Health at $3.2 million. These numbers include about 90,000 prescriptions, which have a value of over $12 million. In the end, we provided a total value to Hamilton County of over $20 million. I hope you'll take all this data and ROI in consideration when you're making a decision on the block grant funding for St. Vincent. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much for your time.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Next, we have Claire Looby.
Good evening. My name is Claire Looby. I'm the Director of Development at St. Vincent de Paul, and I've been involved there for about 8 years. Thank you so much for including us tonight in this discussion and for learning more about our programs. $68.59 is the cost it takes for Ohio Medicaid to fill 1 prescription. For that same amount of money, our pharmacy, St. Vincent de Paul Charitable Pharmacy, can fill 5 prescriptions. It costs the pharmacy only $12.91 to fill each prescription. The pharmacy's leveraging of resources is unprecedented. With volunteer labor and donated drugs, the pharmacy can take every one of the county's dollars and distribute $11 worth of medications to those in need. With the investment from the Hamilton County Block Grant in 2018, we plan to serve 107 families and fill 6,600 prescriptions. The pharmacy exceeded these goals, and not just by a little. The pharmacy served 200 more families and filled over 9,000 more prescriptions than we had proposed initially in our grant to you all. We appreciate your consideration of supporting the pharmacy again this year, and I'm here to tell you we would not disappoint you in achieving our proposed outcomes and improving the lives of Hamilton County residents. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Patricia Gary. Good evening.
Hi.
Hey.
I'm here because I am actually the person who actually wrote the grant for Maslow's Army, and what I did, because I had so much admiration for these, as I have said, these people who didn't know what they're doing couldn't be done. They just started. So they filed as a 501c3, which is a hard thing to do, and they managed to do it pretty much by themselves, and then they just started to work, and people started to help them. So they get all kinds of things. My son Brian's porch is always deluged with donations for Maslow's Army. It just goes on and on and on. And they really, there's no way that what they're doing should have even happened, because it's just too hard to start all that. But people just pitched in, and now they managed to get a bus. And so last winter, I'm sure you all saw on the news all the time that they saved lots of lives. A couple of people they actually lost because, one guy decided that he could just, he was going to get housing soon, so he could just stay outside until he got housing, and it didn't work out that way. At any rate, we wrote this small grant request to try to get the ability to have that van out more often, to have it out all year long, and to try to get people to their appointments, even after people get housing. For instance, if they're placed out in, way out, then they have to get downtown to appointments, and it's just an impossibility. They also are not necessarily ready to be organized to make the phone calls and do all that kind of stuff. So Sam and Susan and their many, many, many volunteers help with all of that, and this would be, I think, a great investment for the county to make, and I hope you're able to do that, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sam Landis. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioners, Administrator, Prosecutor. Just recently, the Prosecutor's Office, Joe Dieter, has funded a project for Maslow's Army where we printed 25,000 weather-resistant street guides, which list all the emergency shelters, detox treatment, shower, laundry, all the basic necessities, all for free. We've so far distributed 59,000 copies of these things, and this is something that we did on a shoestring budget because we've been reaching out for help. Maslow's Army is an Ohio-registered nonprofit, a corporation. Our emergency mobile shelter is housed at 645 Lynn Street, Cincinnati, Ohio 45203. That's at Fern with the executive director of the director of Fern, Aaron Bloodworth. Allows us to park there. We have worked with Hamilton County Reentry, Hamilton County Job and Family Services, the Hamilton County Sheriff Department, the Prosecutor's Office, again, who paid for the printing. And during the polar vortex, we began what is the country's first emergency mobile shelter, which exists to serve Hamilton County. And in fact, it saved lives, as it was mentioned before. 21 people lost their lives during this year's polar vortex, none in Cincinnati. So as I said, on a shoestring budget made possible by independent financial contributions, we have existed since 2016. We have served over 200,000 meals. Our mobile unit that we just purchased this year on a business loan from our own pocket has served over 200 individuals living directly on the streets. That means places not meant for human habitation. And we are an emergency mobile transportation system during the day. We have participated in the Taste of Cincinnati for 3 consecutive years. The first year we served 7,900 slices of Jets Pizza, absolutely for free. The second year we worked with Texas Roadhouse, where we served 200 pounds of pork. This year we've been invited back by the Chamber of Commerce and the new captain, his name is slipping my mind, to do all 3 days once again. So Maslow's Army will be there all 3 days of the Taste of Cincinnati, affording people meals that just don't have the economics to be able to have a meal, but can participate in this year's Taste of Cincinnati. So I just want to strongly urge you to consider Maslow's Army for somewhere in this grant, because a little bit of money, we could do a lot.
Thank you.
And thank you. Congratulations
Thank you.
to all that were recommended.
All right. Our next speaker is Brian Gary. Good evening.
Administrators. First thing, I just want to thank the committee who has worked so diligently and fairly in the process of choosing people. I am here probably obviously on behalf of Maslow's Army. And as I'm sure everyone knows, homelessness is on the rise in Hamilton County. During the polar vortex, which has been referenced a lot, as Sam said, 21 people died in the Midwest, and during the polar vortex in Hamilton County. None died, largely due to our efforts of being out day and night, all night. And our the areas that we were working in fact, are temporary stationary cold shelter at that time. We partnered with a church in Elmwood Place. And we've been working in Norwood, Delhi, Anderson, the Colerain area. And I just wanted to say, in terms of bang for the buck, we're a 100% volunteer organization. So when you're investing in a 100% volunteer organization, there's no money going to administrative costs, and it doesn't get much bigger in terms of your bang for your buck there. We did save lives. In fact, one young man who grew up in White Oak, Kenny Nagel, when we saw him, he was wearing nothing. This was the one that was 25 below with the wind chill. I think it was 10 below or 15 below, 25 below with the wind chill. Kenny Nagel, he had nothing more than a tweed coat, and he was just sitting freezing and probably would have died just from that. But we got him to the hospital where he was diagnosed with pneumonia, and we got him on his feet again, got him the antibiotics that he needed, and then got him the psych emergency services that he needed. But these are the people who are on our streets in the county, and we would appreciate it if you could maybe spread that money a little bit further and include us. I know there's lots of great needs. We heard them tonight. But I think we may be able to share just a little bit more with new innovative organizations like ourselves. We're only asking for $70,000, and we can make that stretch a long way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Bruce Berger. Good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Bruce Berger. I'm a treasurer for Maslow's Army, and I was integral in creating Maslow's Army. I took Sam Landis off the street and got him going with his life, and he wanted to do an outreach, and I funded that outreach for the first year of 2017. You know, we gave away socks, we gave away underwear, all brand new, T-shirts. We sold pizza, or gave away pizza, fresh fruit and water. But you know, there's only so much a person can do. especially in my situation. What we were looking for is money from the county so that we can extend our services into the county, get beyond the city, and have buses that it can go and really work out of the city in the various county neighborhoods and help those that are homeless, which are there. You know, you have homeless in the non-residential or non-municipal area of Cincinnati. There was some, we started out incorporated in Kentucky. We have a Cincinnati P.O. box. We get private funding only for the last close to 2.5 years. We're looking for some public money to help us extend our services, to help us give us legitimacy, which is very key to going to other foundations to get the matching money. So, whatever you think, but we're trying to improve ourselves, and I think you'll get a lot of benefits for the money.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Susan Landis. Good evening.
Hi, I'm
good evening.
Susan Landis. I'm the president of the board of Maslow's Army. Well, we came in today to advocate, not for ourselves, but for the individuals out there living directly on the streets that we encounter when we take our bus out, and of course, every single Sunday. So I don't have a speech prepared, but what I can tell you is what I've seen, when we have had the bus out during very cold temperatures. The things I have seen have kept me up at night because we've encountered so many individuals directly on the streets that may have not got the attention that they desperately needed. We encountered one individual who had a hole practically in his knee, and had we not picked him up, he would have been out there. And the things that Maslow's Army is able to do with very little funding, it has just been amazing, and it's been instrumental to these individuals. I don't know if any of you have ever, been outside when it's extremely cold and you've just felt that bitterness hit you. Well, I've encountered that. I lived out in it, and when I see these individuals get on our bus, it makes me look and say, that was me at one point. What if something like this had been out there for me? And the individuals that get on our bus get connected to the resources, because transportation is a gap in Hamilton County, especially for these individuals. Some of them, I'll admit, some of them are not very, they can be very difficult to work with. We've had individuals that have gotten on our bus, like Brian had mentioned, that had pneumonia and was just in a little small jacket. It's those kind of things that keep me up at night and make me come up here and speak on their behalf, not on Maslow's behalf, but theirs.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in.
Thank you.
All right, I've got 2 more speakers cards. One of them is signed by someone named Rich. And that's all I've got. Rich. Okay. I'm going to move to the next then. Monique Mazenhalter. Good evening.
Hello. This is the 3rd meeting where I've spoken, a commissioners meeting, where I've spoken about the installation of 4G and 5G small cells throughout our communities and about Cincinnati becoming a smart city. For a few years already, hundreds of small cell towers have been installed in front of homes, schools, etc., and telecom companies are planning to install many more. Fiber has also been installed underground, and very soon 5G small cells will likely be attached to it. Many residents don't know about any of this, or that on April 25th, Verizon announced that they will start running 5G in Cincinnati this year. Some communities may already be running it. In February, telecom executives gave congressional testimony that they have no scientific evidence that 5G is safe. Americans all over the country, including elected officials, are challenging 5G installation. Lawsuits have been filed against the Federal Communications Commission. Ohio House Bill 478 was passed last year, and it prevents our municipalities from stopping small cell installation. This needs to be overturned. There is research confirming that 5G is harmful and that exposure to all sources of cell phone and wireless radiation is harmful too. It can cause blood sugar fluctuations, kidney disease, respiratory issues, mental health issues, violence, increased cancer risk, and much more. Online documentary Generation Zapped provides an overview. The first 5G court case was won last year in Gateshead, England, but only after it was installed in streetlights and residents became sick. Serious cybersecurity risks have also been identified with 5G, including by a former senior National Security Council director. I'm part of a local group called Southwest Ohio for Responsible Technology, or SWORT. We have a Facebook page. We're all very concerned about this. Elected officials in Hallandale Beach, Florida, passed a resolution urging state legislators and federal government to study the health effects of 5G and develop guidelines to protect the health and welfare of residents. I'm asking you to do the same, as well as work on overturning Ohio House Bill 478 and federal legislation to return control over installation back to municipalities. I'm also asking you to reconsider LED streetlights. The American Medical Association has warned about biological and environmental risks associated with them. Other experts have agreed. This is also being addressed in other parts of the country. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That concludes the hearing for this evening. And Joy, I'm going to ask you to come back up and talk to us a little bit about timeline here. I'm going to ask that we extend the hearing until next week on Tuesday, because this is an unusual time and place for our hearings, and so I want to be sensitive to that. And so, but talk to us about the time frame as far as the vote of the commission.
Okay. I mentioned earlier that we submit our plan to HUD, and if we don't hear from them after 45 days, we assume it's been approved. So had we submitted our plan tomorrow, it would be approved July 1st. So we're close to this 45-day wanting to start projects July 1st, but we can just wait to start the projects in the communities and wait to start the contracts. We do have one organization that has existing funding that we will ask them to extend their contract until the end of July so they can continue their operations. But we would like to have the commission pass this next week so we can submit it and start contracts July 15th. We have boilerplate contracts that have been approved by the prosecutor's office, and we've shared samples on our website with the RFP process, so our agencies are aware of the stipulations, and most of the agencies that are being recommended have already worked with the county and have already worked under this contract, so we don't anticipate delays as far as implementing and executing contracts. If need be, if there's more time that's needed on the commissioner's part, all the other projects will just be delayed further. There's a process where we get the action plan approved, and then we request the release of funds, and so those go hand in hand.
Okay, so the target is next Thursday.
That's the target.
Okay. And I'm just going to, again, make the suggestion that we keep the hearing open until Tuesday. Take any comment that anybody has on Tuesday. I don't want to, I don't know if there's been any confusion about an evening meeting out in Colerain Township, but in the case that there has, want to be deferential to that, and then expect that we can have a vote on Thursday. Okay?
Thank you. And if anyone has comments that they want to send, they can mail them to Community Development at 138 East Court Street, 10th floor, and the zip is 45202, or they can email them to my attention, joy.pearson, P-I-E-R-S-O-N, at hamilton-co.org.
Okay.
If we receive them by Tuesday, they will be included and shared with you and with HUD.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, Joy, if you could wait for a few minutes. What's the latest date to submit to meet our deadline with HUD?
I believe we have 60 days after receiving our grant agreement,
Mm-hmm.
but that means all of our projects are on hold. And the problem is that HUD has a timeliness deadline, and we have a snapshot at the end of January where we can only have 1.5 times our grant on our line of credit. And even though we don't get our money, we used to receive our grant on March 1st. Even though we're not receiving our grant, last year it was September 29th, we still can only have 1.5 times our grant on the line of credit. So we're playing a game where we're trying to constantly keep things moving because we don't want to give money back. So the timeliness is more about, the timeliness of passing the action plan really is more to do with keeping our timeliness in check for January so that we don't have $3.5 million sitting on the line, sitting on the books, that projects haven't been started and getting the money spending. So right now we have existing projects from 17 and 18 that we're trying to continue and close off. And then we're kind of on this, like a gerbil or a hamster in one of those wheels to try to keep spending the funds and make sure we're timely. We do not want to give the money back.
Yeah, I certainly would not want to give the money back and didn't want to indicate that, just needed to know that. So also I know the committee set priorities on what areas money should be allocated to. If I wrote it down right, homelessness was $200,000 that you guys decided should.
Let me look at this cheat sheet.
That's what I wrote down anyway. Allocation.
The recommendations were $150,000 for eviction prevention.
No, I'm not talking about this sheet, the recommendations, but when you got the money from HUD, did you guys set priorities on how much would go into each area?
No, that was not done.
Okay, well, where did I get this from then? Okay. Let me move on.
Grant, that's $280,000. That only can be used for homelessness prevention.
Okay, maybe that's what
the
I
Emergency
heard.
Solutions Grant.
Okay.
Yes, it used to be the Emergency Shelter Grant. And we work with the Continuum of Care and Strategies to End Homelessness. By law, we have to. And the City of Cincinnati's funds go into that pool as well. So the city receives about $900,000. $500,000 of that is used for shelters. And the balance is used for homelessness prevention, rapid rehousing, and other related programs. And then our funding is just used for rapid rehousing and homelessness prevention.
Thank you. So, well, I have a couple other questions. The recommendations that we were presented, how many of those facilities or agencies have received monies before?
Of the 5 programs, 4 of them received funding last year.
Okay.
And 2 of them received funding in the past. So the the foreclosure prevention program was started. This will be the 3rd year they received funding. So they were started in 17 with some funding that was left over from the Housing Opportunities Made Equal. And then the program was expanded last year.
Yeah.
But the new program is the eviction prevention that was brought forward by the Human Services Chamber with some study that was done.
And I appreciate the thoroughness of just really kind of looking at numbers right now. All of these agencies are wonderful for whatever they do in the community. Some of them I'm familiar with, other ones I'm not, but these are great agencies to be involved in the community. Lastly, the $300,000 that we had left over for home repairs, are we mandated by HUD then to use that toward home repair, or do we have the discretion of using that $300,000 for something else?
HUD does not mandate any of the programs.
So can we use that for something else? Like
It can be used for other eligible CDBG activities, but it cannot be used for additional social services. So we have a 15% cap from HUD. The majority of the funding must be used on housing and community development projects. So of the 300,000, 25,000 of that could be used on a social service. But the 275 could be used for a community project, it could be used for economic development projects, it could be used for planning administration grants, but it cannot be used for additional public services.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. So with that, thank you all for coming. If it's okay with you, we're going to extend the hearing until Tuesday. So if anybody else would like to come speak, please let them know that. But thank you all for coming. It's very, very helpful to hear your perspectives and your support for the different agencies that are involved in the funding requests. And thank you to the folks that did the work to bring the recommendations forward. So appreciate y'all coming. I'm going to give you all a minute to go, unless you want to stay. We're going to move on to the rest of the agenda.
Right. So for, total 3 point something, 3.4.
All right, we're going to resume. So Administrator Aludo, I know you wanted to comment on a couple, the rest of the agenda is consent agenda, but we've got a couple things that I know you wanted to highlight, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. Just a couple, we don't normally go through the consent agenda in significant amounts of detail, but there's some items on here today that I really wanted to focus on, in part because in some cases we have some folks here with us today who are here, and there's some really good stories associated with some of these. The first is item 1 on your consent agenda. This is the resolution authorizing an agreement with the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Gardens. It relates to the levy that was passed in May of 2018. The board will remember that was a flat renewal, generating roughly $7 million a year for the Zoo and Botanical Gardens, specifically around the issue of animal care, animal health, and the direct services related to the operation of the zoo. Thane Maynard is here this evening, and I believe is prepared to say a few comments to the board.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks very much. And as the commissioners know, and others here might not, but since 1982, our biggest supporters have been the taxpayers of Hamilton County. The levy for our zoo is important. It helps us keep affordable, helps us keep up a very aging park, but more importantly, make sure we're really vital to the community. We have a wide variety of programs that make the zoo accessible to anybody that wants to come. They can figure out how to come, and the levy's an important part of that. Over the past 13 years, we've grown to be the biggest attraction in Hamilton County, biggest attraction in the city of Cincinnati, and the biggest year-round attraction in the region. So it's been a great partnership, and I think a win-win, and I was happy to come out to Colerain just to say thank you when I knew it was on the agenda. So thanks very much for your long-term support.
Well, thanks for all that you do, Thane, and for
Thank you.
all the improvements that you continue to do up at that facility. It's magnificent. So, yeah, thank you for everything. Do you want us to go ahead and take that item up?
I've got about 4 items I just wanted to hit on, so I don't know if
Okay.
you want to hit those just individually as we go through them.
Why don't we do them all at once?
You wanna do them all?
We'll do
Okay.
them all at once,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so that's item number 1. Item number 2 is budget adjustment number 12 in your packet. I just wanted to highlight this because the bulk of this item appropriates the soft cost for development of the bank's Phase 3B. So this is lots 23, 27, and 28, which is currently being discussed in public for the siting of a music venue, which would be just southeast of Paul Brown Stadium if someone was looking at a plan view of the stadium and the bank's development. I just wanted to point a couple of things out on this. First of all, because we've gotten some comments and questions about this, that and this goes whenever something new goes in on the banks, whether we're putting in the hotel or different retail establishments. People always ask, why is the county building a restaurant on the banks? Well, the county's not building a restaurant on the banks, similar to the way the county is not building a music venue. The county's dollars, so the dollars that we'd be appropriating for the project this evening, the county's dollars are focused on, if folks, anyone who would be listening at home can think of the banks in the past history. All of that area between the stadiums was in the floodplain. So every single year that would flood. So there's no way any development could happen between those stadiums. What the county's dollars do or lift that area up out of the floodplain by putting in public parking facilities and a podium on top of that, on top of which goes all of that private development, be it restaurants, retail, apartments, in this case potentially a music venue, but regardless of what goes on top of there, the necessity is to lift that area up out of the floodplain so that development can continue across the banks. So I just wanted to make sure that that was known, because I'd gotten some questions directly about the county, quote, building a music venue. The second issue associated with this item is I always get questions as well about the source of funding on this, and people wondering, we have a $28 million structural deficit in our budget, and people want to know why we're building a parking garage on the banks when we have a $28 million structural deficit. And so, again, just for those folks who are at home or just for the public, these are dollars that are restricted fund. They are project-related dollars, grant dollars, some from the state and other sources that have come together to fund this development. This is not general fund dollars. These are not dollars that we use for public safety or for the operation of public services in the county, et cetera. So the item before you again is item number 12. This is $5.9 million for project funding and grants. So there's a variety of items in here based grants in different areas, Board of Elections, probate court, sheriff grants, et cetera. But the bulk of it, again, is appropriating the soft cost expenses for payment of expenses associated with the design of that parking infrastructure and for construction management as we move forward. So that's item number 2. The next item I just wanted to hit on, I'm going to skip over one item but go to item number 4, which is in your packet, item number 4, and that is a 2019 lodging tax capital project grant, $557,470 to the city of Sharonville. Jim Downton, the Sharonville Convention Center director, is here with us this evening. He presented on this, I believe it was on Tuesday. Is that right, Jim? The days seem to run together. But this is for phases 3 and 4 of design development for expansion, the 20,000 square foot expansion of the Sharonville Convention Center. Ultimately, we expect that Sharonville will come back to us when that is done to present full construction documents, finalize a cost on the construction of the convention center, at which point in time we will discuss, as we have done in the past, a cost share using transient occupancy tax dollars, again, not general fund dollars, to assist with that expansion. So again, one of the board's priority capital projects that we have the opportunity to take action on this evening as well. And I believe finally, number 5 in your packet is a resolution approving the sale of the former Stearns and Foster property owned by BAD Properties to the village of Lockland. This relates to the old Stearns and Foster property again in Lockland. Back, I believe it was in 2010, the county received I believe it was $1.8 million grant from the state of Ohio to demolish that site, perform environmental remediation of the site, get it all cleaned up, and get it prepared for private development. That also was right in the middle or right at the beginning of the financial downturn, so there wasn't a lot of people developing a lot of property at the time. But now the village of Lockland has looked to acquire this property, to consolidate it with other property in that area to create about a 12-acre parcel that they want to market for development and turn it into a true economic development site-ready place in Lockland to spur future development. So something that the county, about 9 years in the past now, had a hand in getting cleaned up and getting ready, is now getting ready to be consolidated and poised for future development. Harry Blanton with HCDC is here, and if there's any questions on that, I'm sure Harry would be happy to answer any questions. But those are the items I wanted to hit on. We have some really good things happening in the county and a lot of good projects that we're working on, and I just wanted to highlight some of those before the board took action tonight.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jeff.
for your patience.
Yeah, and I also want to just, on item number 5, it's so important to have done this remediation so that we can have economic development activity in Lockland on a much larger site than was available before. So thank you for all that you've done to make that happen. I know, I believe I was a state rep at the time that this one came through, so glad that there was a partnership with the state to allow for those dollars to remediate a site. I also want to highlight item number 12. I was with the Colerain Township trustees this morning at the Dent opening of the marketplace, the Kroger Marketplace, and they were talking about the zoning case that we've had in front of us now a couple of times, and they were very grateful for the residents coming in and voicing their opinion about the proposed recommendation that was in front of us, and then Colerain Township going back and redoing it so that we have something that is much more amenable to the folks that live in the neighborhood on Belle Claire. And so item number 12, I don't want it to go without saying that I think does address the concerns of the neighbors and allows for some of the economic development and training site to move forward. So I think that was a nice compromise, and I want to say that Colerain Township worked in partnership with the County Commission and the residents of Belle Claire to make that one happen. So unless there are any other comments or questions,
Madam President?
Yeah.
I just wanted to thank our administrator for clarifying item number 2. I had some questions myself, but you did a great job of clarifying that. And also, as it relates to item 12, as Madam President had indicated, Belle Claire really made some adjustments in their plan for the residents. And as I said at our last meeting, that they showed us that government can work. And so I thank them also.
Okay, and so I will move that we approve of consent agenda items 1 through 13.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
We also have a travel item, item number 14, requesting travel auditor, one employee going to St. Louis and one from the coroner's office going to Schaumburg, Illinois. I will move to approve of the travel item.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Thank you. We have nothing before us other than that, so I will move to adjourn.
Second.
Commissioner Dreehouse?
Yes.
Commissioner Summer Dumas?
Yes.
Thank you again to the folks in Colerain for having us.
Mhm.